Hi, I'm Matt Morrow, President of the Springfield Area Chamber of Commerce. I want to share several important developments that are impacting our business community this week. We've also invited one of our members to share his thoughts about the Chamber's role as the voice of business in the process of reopening our local economy. These are our top 5 takeaways from the week. Takeaway number 1, your commitment to safety best practices and developing solutions can positively impact the local policymaking process. As the reopening process moves forward, the Chamber has continued to advocate for businesses and facilitate communications between various industries and decision makers. Those conversations, along with continued positive data from the community's health dashboard, have led city leaders to expand opportunity for businesses and organizations that previously could not reopen. In a few minutes, we'll talk with Jeff Schrag of Mother's Brewing Company to get a first-hand assessment of that process. Takeaway number 2, Springfield and Greene County amended their Phase 1 orders to allow enhanced risk activities to reopen. Businesses and organizations that provide enhanced risk activities can reopen, but with some restrictions. These businesses will be limited to 25 people or the maximum that can be accommodated with proper social distancing, whichever is less. Businesses in this category include, but aren't limited to, museums, bars and tap rooms, and facilities for non-contact sports and fitness classes. In addition, the limit on group gatherings has been increased to 25 as long as those gathered adhere to the same social distancing guidelines. There are some differences in how the city and county amendments address churches and religious organizations, but both have eased their previous restrictions. Takeaway number 3, these amendments show that officials are delivering on their promise to revisit local restrictions frequently in light of increasingly positive community indicators. Recent testing of asymptomatic frontline and essential workers in Greene County has so far turned up 0 positive cases of COVID-19. That data is encouraging. Health Department Director Clay Goddard announced that by the middle part of next week, officials will roll out a recovery plan with additional details about the next phases of continued reopening. These phases will be considered on a bi-weekly basis in light of current health dashboard metrics. We continue to advocate for the early release of the details of each step before those steps take effect. We know you need time to plan for each phase in this process, so when those early releases come, please study and review those steps. Make plans for your next stage of reopening. But please also resist temptation to implement those next step plans before the effective date. We want to keep up the good faith collaboration our community is known for and not hinder our ability to get that information out to businesses in advance so you can be prepared each step of the way. Number 4, for those of you with Paycheck Protection Program loans, there's more helpful guidance available this week. We've received answers to a couple of your most frequently asked questions. For example, will a borrower's loan forgiveness be reduced if the business laid off an employee and offered to rehire the same employee, but the employee declined the offer? The short answer is no, but be sure to check out the Federal Assistance section of our coronavirus webpage. There, you'll find a link for the updated FAQ document in the Paycheck Protection Program Loans section. Takeaway number 5, Governor Mike Parson plans to join us for our virtual edition of Good Morning Springfield on Thursday, May 14th. As always, we'll also feature timely and relevant community and business updates from area leaders. You can find the link to join us for that event on our online calendar at springfieldchamber.com/events. To hear directly from one of our members about the impact of this week's events, we've invited our past chairman of the board of the Springfield Area Chamber of Commerce and one of our leading businesses here in the area, Jeff Schrag, to share a little bit about his experience. Jeff, if you would, maybe just take a moment to talk a little bit about how your company's experiences have been affected and maybe your own responses to the COVID-19 crisis.
Yeah, it's been different company to company. The brewery has been the most impacted.
Okay.
First of all, draft beer is more than 25% of our sales, and sales of that completely have stopped. A lot of the operations at the brewery require 4 or 5 people to work in tandem with one another. So fortunately, we had N95 masks already that we used for some of our filtering and grain operations. And so that was very handy for us to issue those and able to try to make the workspace absolutely as safe as possible. Probably one of the odd compounding factors is deliveries, where we have multiple deliveries every day and trying to build a touchless delivery system for both receiving and sending things out. And now we're in a whole new world of opening the tap room back.
So I want to talk to you just a little bit about that, because one of the things that we've been trying to really encourage our members to do and businesses in the area to do is just to communicate well about what their plans would be for reopening, how they would approach that, maybe offer some constructive suggestions in this process, tell their stories to us so that we know as we advocate on behalf of business what those needs are. And that's exactly what you have done. I know you were planning and preparing to reopen on May 4th. And then when the city and county order came on the Thursday before that Monday, you know it wasn't going to happen. And so talk a little bit about that experience, what that was like, and then what those next steps were that you took.
Yeah, so I'll admit in the beginning I was a little shocked that brewery tap rooms were carved out and couldn't open up. I did not see that coming. And so, as is natural, I was a little bit sad about that and withdrawn, but then a member of the chamber staff reached out to me and wanted to know if the chamber could help. And so we talked through a plan to engage individual members of city leadership and explain to them how we felt like we were different, and most importantly, how we felt like we could responsibly open and still social distance. That was very impactful for me. I'm very grateful that I was not allowed to just go in my corner and sulk. But the answer is never to go in your corner and sulk, right? I heard a business person being interviewed and said you get one day to feel sorry for yourself, and you got to get back up, dust yourself off, and get back into the fight.
Well, it helps not only you, but it helps so many others when you get back into that fight. And the approach is so important. I mean, everybody's trying to do the right thing right now, trying to be healthy and at the same time provide lifelines to businesses. And so instead of opening on Monday, able to open in limited fashion on Thursday that same week. And then I guess the big question for me is to you, Jeff, while we have you here, is what are the most important things that the chamber can do right now to help support and serve businesses, employers, job creators like you, as you navigate through this really unprecedented and difficult challenge?
Sure. I think what the chamber could do specifically, is just encourage businesses to think about this as a little bit more of a long-term scenario.
Yeah.
Let's not assume that something magical is going to happen June 1 or July 1. Let's just be that trusted convener that reminds people that, this may take a while. And so what can you do that is both reasonable, responsible, and sustainable for the near term? That's where I think the chamber could have that little bitty voice, sitting on everybody's shoulder, just reminding people that be reasonable, be sustainable, be responsible.
Well, so grateful for that. And we certainly will try to fulfill that need and other needs that you have along the way. Jeff, I want to thank you so much for sharing your experience with us and engaging with the chamber and with the city and county in such a constructive way along the way, helping us move forward and reopening more businesses as we go through this process and really modeling some of the best way to approach that. It's hard. I've been inspired by you and by so many others in our community who have had their entrepreneurial ability to innovate on full display through this process. And I just want to thank you for everything that you have done and continue to do to lead.
Kind words. You're very welcome.
Jeff, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us and for engaging with the chamber in such a constructive way, helping us to move forward and reopening more businesses safely in partnership with our community leaders. This is why we need member engagement and feedback. We are your advocate and your voice in that process. Thank you for being a part of the Springfield Area Chamber of Commerce.